Hello, welcome to Dargon DM. Today's going to be a special episode where I go on a bit of a rant. So to start this all off, I first want to explain that I'll be talking about a live game that I had just recently. It was actually one of my first times, and I also got to play with miniatures for the first time. Really cool. I also want to explain too that the DM and I are still friends, although I refuse to play in that game anymore for multiple reasons, and I will go on soon a little bit of a tangent explaining why. But first things first, and I want to make my point clear to everybody from the very beginning. When you're starting a new game with new players, new people to D&D, make it look good for us. Please. We need as many players as we can get, and you just scaring them off by being a dick doesn't help the gaming community at all. So, let's begin. Now, from the first off, we talked and we all kind of had an idea of what we wanted from the game. We did have a session 0, although we weren't there to make it for the first session, sadly, as my girlfriend and I were playing, and we decided to meet up with this new gaming group. There's about 5 other players, so it's a pretty big group, and then plus the DM. And he is really smart, the DM. He knows a lot about D&D and the world, so he kind of ended up making his own, kind of personal, cool little world. And he had all these new classes, and there's a new system in its own sense, where a lot of modifications. It was almost like a Pathfinder mixed with D&D 5e. And he wasn't familiar with D&D 5e that much, so many of the rules he didn't know. But he did say though that all the D&D 5e spells were D&D 5e spells. So stick by your word too. Isn't there a point for you DMs? If you're going to say something, live by it. Unless you pull the people aside and be like, look, I made a problem. But then just don't arbitrarily change the rules. And if you do change the rules, explain why you have to. It makes us feel like, we're not being cheated. So, sorry, I'm going to go back on topic here. We came into the game, and there's a few new players in there, and quickly we all realized that the game was just numbers. Honestly, there's no real description. He didn't encourage roleplay. We had one roleplay character, and a lot of times he would sigh and make him pretty much feel bad. And I believe he's leaving too, and he invited us to his own game afterwards. That's how bad it was for him. And basically, for the whole entire game, it was all just numbers, and that's okay. There's murder hobos in D&D, and I totally accept that. And I had a good time for the most part. I made a complete support character. He had this special class where I could do both cleric and wizard spells, but no damage, all just support. Which honestly, at first, you're kind of thinking, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun. It was actually a lot of fun just being in that class and kind of learning how much or how many cool things I could do just using supporting spells and healing spells. But other things happened after that. And here's the next tip. Don't hit on your players. For the love of God, don't hit on your players. I got hit on so many times. My girlfriend got hit on a little bit. And then they started hitting on my 16-year-old friend. And these people are in their 30s. It's a little weird. So that definitely threw us off. And that's another reason why we left, because that's just weird. D&D should be about having fun. And if you want to flirt with one of your players, don't do it. Just don't. It kind of makes things uncomfortable unless, you know for a fact. No, just don't do it. Maybe after the game's over, like the entire campaign, and you could try. But please don't. It really makes the situation uncomfortable. It doesn't give a good name to the D&D crowd. So let's go on to my next problem about all of this. So we kind of already first off hitting one that he was just kind of a dick to people in RP, which part of D&D is about RP, and I think honestly you should show new players how fun RP could be. There's a few other videos that I should probably link that give really good examples of how you can RP or how to break out. One is how to be a better game master. He has a bunch of those. Second thing that he did wrong that I would say is in hitting on your players. Just don't hit on your players. The third thing that he did wrong, and I don't want to sound like a jerk with this one, but he wanted us to end up making backstories, and it's in a different world. It's in his world, so I'm not quite sure how to play, or not how to play, but what is right in his world. So I made a backstory and I tried running it past him, and I did it very a very flexible backstory. Essentially, I was a type of shadow elf, which was like a race of elves that were in an evil situation and escaped, but in the least complicated way. So I would say that my parents were sold off to slavery as they were trying to escape, and they landed in the hands of something called a snow elf, which supposedly are really bad elves, quite evil, so they would own slaves. And I wanted this, since I was being a white mage, I wanted somebody to teach me. So I thought that it'd be a good idea to have him be a wizard of some sort of ability, so he'd have his own slaves and have his own place. And he practiced magic. Now, I wouldn't say he's really a bad slave owner, but he was still a slave owner. There I was born, and my character had an intelligence score of 22 and a wisdom score of 20. I was downright a genius in the most literal of senses. So it made a lot of sense for him to see my character and be like, wow, this kid's really smart. And then he would be started to see that I was very proficient with magic. And he started training me. And this is my idea, that he just kind of trained me. And then he got mad that I couldn't learn damage spells. So this is where I kind of split into. I had two different storylines I wanted to do, but both were kind of very similar. One route was that I started practicing damaging spells, and I was really, really good at it. And then one of my spells kind of misfired, and I basically killed either my family or I killed some of the people there. Basically, I killed people that I didn't want to kill, and that drove my character to go, I'm going to never touch damage spell again and only help people. And that's what drove him to be a white mage, versus mage that can only do cleric and wizard spells that are support based. There's another route where my character could never have done any damage spells at all. And then he basically said that if I couldn't, something bad would happen. And then he killed my parents, and then I would have assassinated him, and basically left and went to the guild and then joined up and then tried to help the world the best I can. Both of those I got a no to from him. And it's a backstory. And I'm like, okay, why? Why can't I have this cool backstory that allowed me to RP better, even though there's very little RP in the game, but you know, they're talking about maybe bringing some in. So I needed to have a backstory. And he's like, well, for the one route, there's no spell that your character would have known at 5th level that would have killed multiple people, except for Fireball. And I was like, okay, well, can I do Fireball? And he's like, no, because you don't know Fireball. I'm not gonna allow you to use it. So I was like, okay, so right off the bat, because I was white mage, I couldn't use my destruction. I couldn't have any destruction. So there we go. That's all gone. Poof. Right? So I was like, okay. What about the route where I killed a wizard? And he's like, no, you couldn't kill a wizard. I was like, okay, well, why couldn't I kill a wizard? And he's like, because level difference. I'm like, why couldn't he just slit his throat while he's sleeping? And he's like, well, because he has spells protecting him. Okay, well, I know to spell. Well, how would you know spells are there? Well, because he trained me. Why wouldn't I know the spells are there? I'm a genius. 22 intelligence, 20 wisdom. I'm not like something you just mess around with. And he's like, no, you couldn't kill him because anyways, if you have a dagger only does 1d4 damage. And even if you're doing a sneak attack, you know, you don't even have sneak attack, and you can't just kill him. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. Well, what do you want me to do then? And then he's like, well, the wizard could have lived and you could just ran off. I'm like, well, that doesn't fit my character's narrative, because that doesn't fit who I had an idea who my character would be. I don't see him as somebody that'd run. Okay, so I need to make a new background. And then I was like, but wait, hold on a second. Why can't I break the spell? And basically, he had this huge misunderstanding of the spells. I even sent him the spell list. And when I did send him the spell and the ability of the spell, he basically got pissed off at me and told me I'm just pissing him off and I better shut up. So me being the person I am, I continued with it. I continued with it so hard, and it continued to make him mad. I explained all these ways I could use my spells to kill the master wizard, either through multiple things, even through poisons and working with the other people. And basically, no, it never worked. Never, no. Kept on saying no to all my backstory ideas. So finally, I got frustrated, and I just basically said, fine, my wizard is a happy wizard that came from a happy little town with 2 happy little parents that went to a mage's guild. There's nothing really wrong with that backstory, by the way, if you're willing to do something like that. But I didn't feel like it offered enough to my character's personal story. But I decided to go try to say that. And then he basically just went on a tangent and said, basically, I'm done because I didn't do exactly what I wanted to. So the moral of all this is, when your players come to you about a backstory, work with them, because it's the most frustrating thing, putting all this time and thought into making something cool for your story. So it allows you to role play. That way you can kind of think and kind of feel like you know your character is. And then just have the DM who feels like he's just almighty powerful God and you can't do anything besides it. Now, of course, some people might like DMs like that. But personally, especially me being a DM, I like creating my own world. I like creating my own story. And when I'm playing, I do like to have some ability to create. And that's why with my players, I sit down with them. I create their character with them. I don't tell them what their character is. I create it with them. When Shay says that she wants to come from a village, I'm like, all right, where is this village going to be? Point it on the map and explain to me how this village grew up, how they are, what they trade, what do they look like. She created an entire backstory. She created an entire group of people. She has family members. She has traditions and laws. And because of this, she's able to bring her character to life. Create with them. Don't just tell them no, and don't just sit back and be like, oh, I just kind of create your own thing, and don't ever bother to try helping. And especially don't get pissed off when your players are trying to find ways around traps you're putting in their way. Allow them to kind of outsmart you, so to call it. You know, what is it? Just having one lost wizard killed by a younger wizard through desperation, despotism. I don't know. Out of just a desperate act of just trying to avenge. That makes sense. And if you want to add more there, add more. Maybe there's other people that are not controlling the wizard, but paying the wizard to do what he does. Maybe there's an overarching campaign you can make with this. There's a lot of room to do. You are a creator. You're not a barrier. Allow people to overcome things, but also if you need to, create more with them. Anyways, this is my frustration. 4 games. This only took 4 games for me to realize that I was not made for this game. And I loved the character I had. He was a very cool one. A white mage. Didn't even have a name for him yet, really. But it was still pretty cool. So, another thing too, anybody that's new to D&D and you come across a DM like that, I promise you not all D&D is like this. Promise. There's a lot of good DMs and there's a lot of good groups, and you know, you just got to find them. It's a little harder because you're so dependent on other people being cool. But once you do, there's nothing more rewarding than an awesome D&D game. Also, if you never like a DM either, why don't you DM too? I actually started off DMing before I started being a player. So it's so much fun. Anyways, thank you guys for listening into this short little rant. Hopefully it wasn't too long, and hopefully it wasn't too annoying, and hopefully I had everything together, but I'm pretty sure I didn't. Anyways, I hope your Saturday is going well, and welcome to the Dargon family. Bye-bye.